lifelong friends.
Oh.
An unbelievable scenario.
You've woke up in the body of a dog?
Suicide by time travel.
The Sultan machines granted your wish.
So you stumble through to find a dead body.
What?
How will they cope?
Don't know.
Honestly, I'm dripping with sweat.
Terminate them.
What will they do?
Go on. I'll give you some money for the Sultan machine. Jake, get away from that Sultan machine.
Join Nick and Jake each week as they surprise each other with a new scenario.
I'm gonna set the whole f***ing island on fire. That's it. You're terminated by a demon frog naked.
And Jake as Ed Nick.
I reckon I can kill someone with a frying pan.
No, you can't do that.
Surprise scenarios. It's gonna mess you up.
Boom, back at Zoltar.
Hello and welcome back to A Killer Podcast. I'm Freya Millard.
And I'm Mimi Woodcock, and we are your hosts.
It is episode 3, which means it is me.
Hope you've enjoyed the first 2 episodes. If you haven't listened to them, you must go back and
Must.
listen to them.
It's all about murder for money this season, and we have covered The Brides in the Bathtub and Ulma
Uloma Curry Walker.
I'm so bad with pronouncing names.
And they both are very interesting cases, so you definitely have to listen to it. Plus, our amazing burning questions. I think they've been really good this season.
Yeah, we've upped our game. We wanted to accompany our setup glow up with a content glow up.
So you have to listen to them.
Yes, have to. So, straight to it, because that's what we're all about, aren't we, Amy? We don't mess. We just tell you about grisly murders and get out.
It's the best way to be.
So, my story is about... Well, actually, I'm not going to tell you who it's about yet. I'm going to just get into it, and you guys can figure it out along the way.
A mystery.
All I will say is there is a lot of scheming and a lot of twists and turns, and I think you're going to love it.
That's what I like to hear.
That's what we all like to hear. So, this story takes us back 30 years ago. It was the start of a new decade, the 1990s.
Oof.
We weren't even born.
What a good decade.
We weren't babies. We were...
We were babies in the 90s.
1990, though. We were 6 years away.
But in the 90s,
yes,
we were babies.
We recall the decade. So, yes, it was the 1990s and it was the first month of the year. The events in the story take place in Florida, in a city called Coconut Creek. I just love that.
That's cute.
I want to live in Coconut Creek. Actually, no, not after this, but I would have. In the early morning of January the 8th, the Broward County Sheriff's Department were alerted to a suspicious silver sedan car parked up on the side of a road in a quiet suburban area. Even more alarming was the fact that one of the back windows of the car had been shot out with glass.
Ooh.
Glass shattering effect, Amy. Go. Brilliant. Astounding. Give her an Emmy. First on the scene was detectives Eli Tomasvich and Jim Carr, and what they found was far more than just a suspicious car. Inside the back seat was a white man who was deceased. His body was bound with duct tape around his hands and feet, and he had several gunshot wounds, including one shot in the stomach, one in the back, one through each of his arms, and 2 shots directly to his head.
He wasn't having a good day.
No. That's an understatement. On the floor of the car, they found a makeshift silencer that had been fashioned together with a lawnmower muffler, and it was covered in blood. The police established that the gun that they had used in the crime was a .38 caliber revolver, and when they got hold of the victim's driver's license, they were quickly able to identify him in their system as 42-year-old Chris Morris. Now, Chris had a troubled past, which was evident from the initial glance at his record. He was living in the local area at the time, but he had substance abuse issues that was fueled by an addiction to cocaine, which got him in a lot of trouble.
Oh dear.
Only 4 months earlier, he was released from prison after serving time for narcotics. This, along with the execution style of his murder, made police initially assume that Chris's shady past may have resulted in his demise. But things would not be so simple, and this was far more than a drug deal gone wrong.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, next season we'll actually get audio effects. But this season it's all us.
Nah, we're always going to be us. We're so musical.
We are musically talented. After discovering Chris's body, the police wasted no time and went to break the news to his mum and dad, Layla and Theron, at their home in Highland Meadows Estate, which was actually only 5 miles away from the crime scene. At this point, it was 5 a.m. in the morning, but amazingly, the couple were awake and dressed when the police arrived.
Maybe they'd been partying all night.
I think so.
Yeah. Or they
Makes
just got up
sense.
really early, like crazy people.
Yeah. They appeared very upset about Chris's passing, but what was noticeable by the detectives was that they did not seem overly surprised, and not once did they ask what this was all about when the police arrived. They said that Chris had a lot of enemies, and he owed money to a few different people for drugs, but that ultimately he was trying to get back on the straight and narrow by finding honest work in construction. Only problem was, Chris had a really bad temper, which meant that those opportunities always ended very badly.
Oh dear.
Many people describe Chris as a bully, including his roommate, 34-year-old Martin Rector, who was actually friends with Chris after meeting him in Martin Correctional Institution in Indianatown. And I thought initially when I was searching it, it was like, his name's Martin Rector, and they met in Martin Correctional Institution, and I was like, huh?
Whoa.
Also, kind of cute, isn't it, to go to a prison with your same name?
Yeah.
Goals.
And then meeting your best pal there.
Yeah. Interestingly, Martin was actually present at Layla and Theron's house when the police came to tell them about Chris's death.
What you doing there, boy? He's been partying with them.
When they spoke with Layla and Theron and Martin separately, they all corroborated each other's version of events. They said that Martin and Chris had come over to eat dinner with them last night, and that Layla had made some lovely spaghetti and meatballs. Yum, yum, yum. However, during the evening, Chris and Martin got into a bit of a fight, but not a physical one. They fought because Chris wanted to take one of Martin's cigarettes, and Martin got angry and told Chris that he was tired of him taking his cigarettes and alcohol, and they should go get his own.
Oh dear.
Which is exactly what Chris went to do. But sadly, that was the last time they all saw him alive.
And he never returned.
According to everyone they spoke with, including neighbours, Layla and Theron were salt of the earth people. They were very sweet and devoted to their son, kind of like your grandparents. However, Chris was not spoken about as fondly. I know you're not supposed to speak ill of the dead, but everyone who had a run-in with Chris said that he was not a great guy. One neighbour said on the Double Cross documentary that I watched about this case that Chris was a tall, thin guy, always smoking cigarettes. For the most part, it always seemed like him and his dad were bickering back and forth. It was said that Layla and Theron had always tried to do what they could to help their son overcome his drug addiction and offer him stability. After Chris got out of prison for drug charges, his parents bought him a car and they decided to let him live with them in their mobile home. More recently, though, they had gotten him his own place, which he shared with Martin, and very, very recently, a third roommate called John Wood.
Oh, hello, John. Welcome to the fold.
And when I say recent, I mean very, very recent. Like, this third roommate, John, he just moved in a few days before Chris was murdered.
That's what I call suspicious.
Suspicious. I was going to go to Elvis Presley then. Felt like singing it, but we won't.
Told you, musical.
This obviously rang alarm bells for the investigators. And to do their due diligence, they brought John in for questioning, and boy, were they not expecting what came next.
I'm excited.
Oh, you should be. John told the police many important details about the crime, including how many shots were fired, where the shots hit the victim, and he even mentioned the makeshift muffler, which was not information that had been released to the public.
I told you, he was dodgy.
You think John did it?
I feel like Johns are... it's always the Johns.
Notoriously dodgy.
Yes.
The fact that he knew so much led police to put some more pressure on John until he cracked and he told them that he did kill Chris.
Told you.
John claimed that he and Chris got into an argument about rent money, which then turned physical. They then got into an altercation out on the walkway of their apartment complex. In the heat of the moment, John pulled out the gun, and as the two scuffled, he said that the gun went off accidentally and he shot Chris in the belly. And then he pulled the trigger 5 more times.
You know, as you do.
It was an accident the first time, and he was like, oh.
He was like, well, I've done it once. Why not do it more?
After Chris collapsed, John said he pulled him into the passenger side of Chris's own car and then took off towards Coconut Creek, where Chris's lifeless body would later be found. Now, it might sound like case closed, everything tied together, and they've got their man. But, of course, let's not be that hasty, guys.
But I was right?
We could stop here and Amy could be right, or we could carry on.
Let's just stop right here. I think I'm happy with that.
There is more to the story, Amy.
Ugh.
There is always more. Very quickly, police started to poke holes in John's story, and the more he talked, the more evident it was that John had no idea what really happened, and he was definitely not the killer.
John, why didn't you keep your mouth shut? God.
The thing was, John's story was truly incompatible with the crime scene evidence. For example, the part about putting Chris's body in the passenger seat Well, that was implausible, because the wound that Chris would have suffered would have bled everywhere, and yet there was zero evidence of blood on the passenger seat side. In contrast, all the evidence pointed to the fact that the injured Chris was only ever in the backseat of the car, including the fact that his body was found in the backseat of the car. You know, just that tiny.
Just that little bit, yeah.
On the Double Cross episode, they also interviewed the detectives who said that another thing which didn't add up to them about John's story was the part about the shooting happening on the apartment complex walkway. They said that given this happened during the early hours of the morning, it just seemed incredibly unlikely that no one in a busy apartment complex would hear 6 shots going off and then also not call the police.
I mean, maybe they're just minding their own business, you know? Just minding my own business.
I don't know what goes on in America. John goes on to initially claim that he threw the gun in a lake behind the apartment complex, but then he later changes his story and says that the gun was actually disposed of about 100 feet away from where he left Chris's body. Again, investigators don't buy this, but to be thorough, they take John out to where the body was found to see if he can actually locate the weapon, since the search team and the canine dogs found nothing in the area previously. But good old John, he's going to find it.
Of course.
Except he doesn't.
God damn it, John.
Because John was talking shit, and he could not lead them to that murder weapon. It turns out that John was not the best character witness. He was a Vietnam vet who suffered from PTSD, and to alleviate his mental health issues, he would self-medicate with alcohol, which was frequently resulting in him having blackouts with no memory of what had happened. When the police confronted John about all the inaccuracies in his story, he decided to take back his confession, which honestly just made far more sense to the police. Like, you didn't do it.
Right, okay. We believe that.
At this point, the investigation stalled, the leads were drying up, the drug deal gone wrong angle was not coming to fruition, and something just wasn't sitting right with them about the whole situation. 3 weeks after Chris's body was discovered, the police decided to go back over every step of the investigation, starting with those early hours in the morning when they visited Layla and Theron Morris in their home.
Bum, bum, bum.
On the documentary, the investigators said that they thought it was odd that the couple were awake so early and dressed. They also thought that it was weird that when they answered the front gate call, they were sat there waiting for it.
Yeah, like they were expecting someone to turn up.
Yeah. Also bizarre was the fact that Martin, Chris's roommate and friend from prison, was there at his parents' house so early in the morning.
Yeah, why would he still be there?
I mean, the dinner was that good.
That was day for dinner, a breakfast. I'm here for breakfast too.
You can't get rid of me.
Where's my pancakes at?
Although it felt almost insane for them to have their doubts about this sweet elderly couple, they just knew there was more to the story, and every spidey sense was tingling, telling them to dig a little deeper.
Never trust the cute old couple.
Rule 3.
We always make a life lesson out of these, okay?
Your grandparents are liars and the murderers. Rule 3.
You never know.
I'm sorry,
you never
they're
know.
not. They're not.
Hey.
But don't trust elderly people.
Don't do it.
I mean, if Brexit taught us anything. Sorry, not political. Carry on. They brought Layla, Theron and Martin in for separate interrogations, and soon enough, they all started singing like canaries about what actually happened to Chris.
Oh dear.
According to Martin, it all began 7 months ago, when Chris approached him in prison. Martin was there serving time for aggravated battery, and Chris, as we know, was just finishing up his sentence for drugs and aggravated assault. Chris said that he had heard rumours that Martin was the guy to go to if you want a job done.
Oh, what kind of job?
Wow, you see, Chris had a pretty terrible job that he wanted done.
Ooh.
Chris had hatched a plan to get rich quick. He wanted to find someone in prison to murder his then-wife, Sharon Morris, and her 11-year-old daughter.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, from a previous marriage, it wasn't his daughter.
Still don't make it any better.
It doesn't. If Martin agreed to do the deed, then Chris would be able to cash in on a life insurance policy that he had taken out on Sharon. He told Martin how on top of the money, he wanted Sharon murdered because she was going to divorce him and take away his child, in reference to a 2-year-old child that they did share.
Oh, okay.
According to Martin, when they interviewed him on the Double Cross, he tried to brush Chris off for this murder for money plot, but he was persistent. He would bribe Martin with cigarettes and other treats in prison, which of course Martin kind of liked.
Ooh, some gifts for me?
Exactly. He was like, someone else fronting my prison commissary bill? I take it. Instead of agreeing, Martin said that he kept telling Chris he would think about it. He kept trying to say, like, yeah, think about it, buy me more shit.
Just some more presents, please.
But of course, this is what Martin has said. And, like, you can't really trust that it's true.
Yeah.
The detectives were like, no, he's the type of person that would agree. 3 months after Chris initially approached Martin about the murder for hire plot, Chris was released from prison. And then 2 months after that, Martin finished his prison sentence. When Martin was released, you wouldn't guess who was waiting eagerly to greet him at the gate.
His best pal.
Buddy Chris was waiting, and he was excited to cash in on that murder favour that he'd asked about all those months before.
He was not letting it go.
He was not. Waiting inside Chris's car for Martin was a sort of get out of jail present. It was 12 packs of beer. No, not 12 packs of beer.
Oof.
I mean, I'd do that murder for that. It was a 12-pack of beer, cigarettes, a sex worker, and some crack cocaine.
Wow.
Which
What a
Martin
selection.
goals. Martin attributes that as the beginning of the end because he got hooked on the crack cocaine. The duo made their way to Chris's parents' home, the trailer at Highland Meadows Estate, where Chris had been living since he had gotten out of prison. When they entered, Chris immediately introduces Martin as the guy who was going to kill Sharon for them.
Mom, Dad, meet the killer.
Cheers, son.
A family affair.
It shocked Martin because it meant that this sweet elderly couple were actually 100% down for the murder.
Fuck yeah.
The Morrises justified their approval of the murder by saying that they had previously given Sharon a lot of money in the past, which they now needed back. And apparently this is the only way to get it.
Of course. Don't ask.
Yeah. The two retirees, Layla and Theron Morris, were not as financially secure as they had hoped to be at this point in their life. They were definitely after a quick cash grab, and they would buy lottery tickets after lottery tickets in the hopes that one would, give them that last big blowout for retirement.
Same.
We're not in retirement, but yeah, this is what this is for us.
Yeah.
Give us money!
Make us some money, people.
They believed that through the life insurance policy, that Chris would be able to collect on his ex-wife in the event of her death. Alongside some of the real estate that she owned, they would be looking at about a $75,000 payment. However, in hindsight, that was incorrect, and they would never have been entitled to the land.
Oh, God.
So clearly they aren't the most thorough researchers.
Yeah.
There's a pattern here in this
There really
sequel.
is. They really need to check up first before they make these plans.
It's a big decision, like, do I kill someone or not? Should I check the policy first? No.
Probably.
Just see what happens. Anyway, it seemed that this number is all it took to get Martin on board, and together all four hatched a devious plan. Chris and Martin began discussing the best way to kill Chris's ex-wife and her 11-year-old daughter. Chris suggested that Martin should dress up as a florist and go knock on her door with a bouquet delivery.
With a gun in it.
Then, when Sharon opened the door, he would push himself in and murder her inside the home.
What a sweet plan.
I don't understand why going for the flowers, because if someone came to give you flowers on your doorstep, you just grab them off them on the doorstep.
Yeah, you
It's
wouldn't
not-
be like, don't come. You wouldn't have them come in, would you?
Yeah, it's not heavy enough to be like, well, please bring them to my table. You have to be like a sofa delivery guy.
But then you need a sofa.
That's true. And they need to have ordered a sofa. I'm not here to try to murder
Maybe it
people,
was a
Amy.
ginormous bouquet of flowers that were quite heavy.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, let me just help you there, darling.
Bang, bang. In the time that followed, Chris continued to egg Martin up to commit this murder, in between sessions of heavy partying. It was clear that both Martin and Chris had a serious drug and alcohol addiction. Chris in particular seemed determined to get his fix no matter the cost to others. He would often raid his parents' home, stealing and selling everything that he could get his hands on, from TVs and stereos to rifling through their wardrobes and snatching any extra cash he could find tucked away.
What a charming boy.
The obvious thing about Chris's dynamic with his parents was that he was in charge, not the other way around. Layla and Theron would do all they could to appease him and his addiction, and because of his behaviour, they were struggling to keep themselves afloat and safe from bankruptcy. Although they loved their son, they didn't particularly like him. Quickly, Layla and Theron started to develop a bond with Martin and saw him as the son that they wished they had.
Oh dear.
As the end of 1989 approaches, the Morrises become more and more disheartened with Chris and his awful behaviour, and so they decide to help him rent a nearby apartment to try and stop him stealing and selling everything they own.
That's understandable.
They're like, could you please stop stealing our stuff? So we're going to pay for you to live somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you guys need to learn how to do some tough parenting. At this point, Martin and Chris move in together, and as time goes on, Chris becomes more and more aggravated that Martin has not killed Sharon and her daughter yet, seeing as it had almost been 2 months since they'd initially met the family and agreed to do the murder. And so the plan went ahead. Martin headed over to Sharon's beach home, dressed up as a florist, holding a bouquet and a weapon.
Ginormous bouquet.
And a weapon. He knocked on the door and Sharon answered, but immediately he was drawn back because of how lovely she looked.
Oh, of course.
He questioned to himself why someone would want to kill her and decided to bail on the plan. So he went back and said that there were other people in the house and that it was too risky.
Oh.
In the meantime, Layla and Theron were doing a little digging, and they suddenly realised a big red flag appeared, which stopped the plan.
Ooh, what was it?
Thankfully, for Chris's ex-wife and her daughter, the insurance policy Chris spoke of had actually lapsed years ago because he had stopped paying the premiums. Meaning, yeah,
They weren't going to get shit.
meaning that murdering these two innocent people would have offered no financial payoff to Chris, his parents, or to Martin.
God, it's lucky that the guy didn't kill them then.
Well, exactly. Since most members of the group were only really after money and not intent on murdering for the sake of it, the plan was called off and Chris's ex-wife and her daughter were safe from what could have been.
Good. That's good.
As you can imagine though, Layla and Theron were fuming. They realised that they had been taken for a ride by Chris, and that this whole murder for money plot was just a way for Chris to have his ex-wife, ex-stepdaughter murdered in cold blood.
So they think he did know.
Oh yeah,
he knew.
He knew, and he was trying to get them killed.
He just wanted them dead.
Yes.
Jesus.
You see, Layla and Theron had been purposely providing their son Chris with the money to pay off that life insurance on Sharon so they would stay active.
Oh.
But obviously he'd just been taking that money.
Spending it on his addiction.
Exactly. And they were like, he is taking the mick. Perhaps some people would have taken this lapsed insurance policy as a sign to try some other methods of getting money. Perhaps
just keep doing your lottery. Just keep doing it.
Perhaps rob a bank, dig for treasure, or hey, get a job.
Whoa, too
wild.
Far.
But no, none of those options would suffice. And so cracks began to form in the group, and the backstabbing began.
Literally?
Pretty much, yeah. Layla and Theron pulled Martin aside one evening and revealed what they knew about the lapsed insurance policy. But instead of letting the entire plan go, the money-hungry trio proposed a whole new scheme to get rich quick. And this time, the victim was someone much closer to home. They all felt betrayed by Chris, who
I
clearly,
can imagine.
Yeah, he clearly misled them with empty financial promises as a way to get Sharon and her daughter killed. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, and it appeared that his doting parents just could not take any more of his antics, and they felt their son was worth more to them dead than alive. And I mean financially, he definitely was. Unlike Chris, Layla and Theron had kept up with the life insurance policy for Chris.
Of course.
They expected a $70,000 life insurance payout in the event of Chris's death.
And they were like, ka-ching!
They turned their attention. They were like, well, we gave you the chance to, make some money off your ex-wife.
Yeah.
But you fucked that up. And lucky for us, we've been paying your own life insurance policy.
So, I think this is our new plan.
$. They thought they were going to get $70,000 because they had read this double indemnity clause in the insurance policy, which stated that if Chris dies in his car, they would receive twice as much money. But
that's a strange one.
Well, I was going to say, what the couple didn't realise is this only applies to accidental deaths to the vehicle.
I was going to say, surely it would be like car crash or something.
Exactly. And knowing what we know about how Chris died.
Yeah, not quite.
Not quite. Of course, at this point, you might be thinking, wait a minute, Layla and Theron are Chris's mum and dad. Surely they wouldn't be able to put a price tag on their own baby's life. And to that I would say, yes, they can.
They absolutely can.
They could, and they did. And so the new year began. Martin toyed with the new murder plot for money. And, he considered killing Chris. And at this point, Chris had really begun to grate on him. I know you're not supposed to speak of the dead, as we've said, but by all accounts, Chris was a shitty guy. His behaviour was cruel, he was abusive, and Martin described him as a self-centred, egotistical sociopath. So whereas before, when Martin hesitated to do the evil deed on Sharon, with Chris, he actually felt that murder was much more deserved.
He's like, yeah, actually, I think you need it.
In the days leading up to Chris's murder, Theron went to a local pawn shop and bought a .38 caliber revolver, and together with Martin, they created a makeshift silencer from a lawnmower muffler.
Interesting.
Bit of bonding time with your new favourite son.
Yeah.
To kill your
They're going to adopt him now, aren't they?
Yeah, pretty much. Then, on Monday, January the 8th, 1990, an unknowing Chris accompanied Martin to his parents' home. Layla prepared herself, Theron, Chris and Martin a lovely spaghetti dinner, knowing full well that it would be her son's last supper.
So they did get the spaghetti and meatballs.
She weren't lying about everything.
I mean, that's good. It's a good last meal.
She's not cruel. Murdering, but not cruel.
But he needs his spaghetti.
Initially, when Martin drew the gun and pointed it at Chris thought it was a joke. Then Martin ordered him down on the floor and Chris began pleading to his dad to help him. But instead, dear old daddy came over and wrapped masking tape around his own son's arms and legs.
Dear.
And they bound him together. He also stuck a sock in his mouth before covering it with masking tape.
They were fully in on it. They were fully ready to do whatever they needed to.
Yeah, I think at this point they just saw, they were done.
Yeah.
He had rinsed them out of everything.
And they were like, you're not our son anymore.
We got a new son.
Yeah.
Together, they loaded Chris into the backseat of his own car, a 1985 Ford that his parents had bought him only months before. However, before they were able to set off on their journey, Chris managed to break free from his captives, and he bolted away in an attempt to escape. They chased him down, caught up with him, and then Martin shot him 4 times with a .38 caliber revolver, with one bullet hitting him in the abdomen and another in the back. Although heavily injured, Chris stumbled as far away as he could, but Theron and Martin catched him up pretty quickly. He pleaded with them and tells them that he's going to bleed to death, so they convince him that if he gets back inside the car, they'll take him to a hospital.
Sure they will.
The guys that just shot you will take you to the hospital.
Yeah, absolutely.
But of course, they never had any intention of getting him help. As midnight approaches, Martin and Theron drive the wounded Chris further away from the hospital, and they decided to pull up along a stretch of road in Coconut Creek. Realising what is going on, Chris pleads for his life once more. When that doesn't start to work, he starts hurling insults and threats.
Probably shouldn't do that.
Martin gets provoked when Chris starts threatening to rape and murder Martin's estranged daughter, Tiffany.
Oh, that's not very nice.
I mean, well, he tried to murder an 11-year-old.
Yeah, he's not got a great track record of being a nice person.
In the heat of the moment, Martin turned around to the back seat and shoots Chris in the left temple of his head. Then he gets out the car, goes around and shoots through the window again, hits Chris with another bullet to his head. If you're wondering where Mummy Dearest, Layla, is during all this time, well, she was actually following behind, tailing Chris's car until it stopped so that she could offer an escape ride to her husband and Martin. She's a good mum.
What a lovely lady. What a good mum.
She's no Leonardo Cianciulli.
Yeah.
Yeah. As Theron and Martin jump into Layla's car, Martin says that Layla started clapping and remarked, "Thank God it's over."
Oh my God. What a lovely day.
Of course it was far from over. Only a few hours later, Chris's body would be discovered, and the police would be at the home of Layla and Theron Morris for that initial suspicious chat, which led them right back to the trio in the end. As the next few hours passed, they all waited nervously for the knock that they knew was coming. No doubt, they gave the performance of a lifetime as detectives told them the tragic news of Chris's murder, and then once they left, all three sighed in relief thinking that they'd gotten away with their murder for money plot. But as we know now, they definitely didn't.
I mean, they didn't really do a great job at pretending that they weren't involved. Like, they could have got in their pyjamas, got into bed. Maybe they could have had Martin sleeping on the sofa and he could have been like, "Oh, I'm just waiting for Chris to come back."
Yeah.
Like, they could have done it
So much better. They failed.
They really did.
As a way to try and cover up the crimes they had committed in the days that followed, their murdering trio went and started to try and feed information to John Wood. Remember the
John,
Vietnam
yeah.
vet? Yeah. The one you thought did it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how they managed to convince him that he was guilty of killing Chris.
No, I feel sorry for John.
All three were brought to justice at Broward County Jail when they were charged with first-degree murder. Layla and Theron Morris pled guilty. Layla was sentenced to 12 years and Theron was sentenced to 20. But seeing as he was 76 years old, that was practically a life sentence.
Yeah.
Despite the fact Martin maintained that he did not set out to kill Chris Morris, he was also found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with a mandatory 25-year provision. And I believe he is still locked up to this day. Well, at least that's what I found out on Google.
Yeah.
Despite the extreme measures they took to make some quick cash, they never actually saw a penny of the insurance money, meaning that in reality, Layla and Theron actually took part in killing their own son for free.
For no reason.
In the documentary, Martin said the crime was not worth it, but this is his quote. As far as Chris Morris is concerned, he deserved every bullet he got.
Lovely.
The end.
Wow. There really is a theme of people trying to kill for money and it really doesn't go their way. So I think people just need to stop.
Just stop,
Just
guys.
stop. Because most of the time, it's not going to go your way. You're not going to get any money. And if anything, you're just going to get caught.
Yep. Do not murder for money.
That's all we've got to say.
I'm glad we were able to teach you this lesson at episode 3, but keep listening.
Yeah, yeah. You never know. We might change our mind halfway through. You never know.
Oh, we do. We're very indecisive. So you want to see how we go for the next, 7 episodes to come?
Exactly.
Of course. Okay, so it's burning questions time.
Yay!
If you've listened to the last few episodes, I'm sure you're well versed in this now. So should we stop explaining it and should we just get on with it?
I think so.
Yeah, let's do this. So, Amy, I'm going to ask you a burning question first.
Ooh, hit me.
What would a gunshot wound crime scene look like in the backseat of a car, forensically speaking? And how can you tell the difference of what's happened with blood pattern analysis?
So, blood pattern analysis is one of my favourite topics, so I apologise if I give too much information.
You can never give too much.
So to begin, I thought I'd explain a little bit about properties of blood to give an understanding of, how it moves. So, blood contains both liquid and solid parts. So the liquids being the plasma and the serum, and the solids being like the red and white blood cells, the platelets and proteins. When the blood is inside the body, it is in a liquid state. And as it exits the body, it's also in a liquid state. But as people who have had cuts and such know, it doesn't stay liquid forever. It will begin to clot, leaving a dark, sort of gel-like consistency stain as time passes. This can be used to determine how long it has been since an attack. As if the blood is still very liquid, then we know it's just that not much time has passed, so that it hasn't had time to clot. So what pattern is left by the blood depends on the way in which blood leaves the body. So this depends on the type of injury inflicted. The blood can come out in drips, sprays, spurts, gushes, or can just flow out of the body. and these will all leave different patterns.
I like that. Saying those words all together is the most like... it's like someone repeatedly saying the word moist.
Moist. Therefore, the pattern which they leave can give an indication of what injury has been sustained and how. The morphology of the blood can also give evidence, as it will be impacted by velocity, distance travelled, and type of surface impacted. One of the main pieces of evidence obtained from the morphology is the angle in which the blood has moved. If blood has fallen at a 90-degree angle, this will leave a nice circular blood stain. So that's most likely if you've had a cut and you're standing upright and it just drips under the force of gravity. But as the angle decreases from 90 degrees, the stain will elongate and become more elliptical, and the direction of the elongation will provide the direction of travel by following the direction of the tail, is what they call it. It's sort of like the pointy end of the stain.
Spatter,
yeah. At very low angles, a single second stain, which is called a satellite, may form to create a distinctive exclamation point stain. Cute. Cute. So, focusing on this case in a gunshot wound crime scene, we would expect to see both a forward spatter from the exit wound, so this would be following the direction of the bullet, and you would also get a back spatter from the entrance wound, which would travel against the line of fire and back towards the shooter due to the direction of the force. This is why it is common to find blood spatter on the arm or hand or the gun of the shooter.
And they had it on the muffler in this case, didn't they?
Yeah, which obviously is some pretty good evidence, because it kind of links that weapon or that person. If you do find it on the hand or anything like that, it tends to mean that it's in quite close contact, because they have to be close enough that the blood has hit them.
Not a decent enough distance.
Yeah. The spatter will vary depending on the calibre of the gun, where the victim is struck, whether the bullet exits the body. So obviously if there's no exit wound, therefore no forward spatter. The distance between the victim and the gun, and the location of the victim relative to walls, floors and objects, such as you might find voids in the blood spatter, which would suggest that something was there at the time of the shooting and has been taken away.
So like the person themselves?
Yeah, so you'd be like, oh, there's a weirdly human-shaped void here. What is this? So, due to the high speed and power of the bullet, the blood spatter that is created is usually less than 2 millimeters, so like each little stain. Sometimes the force that is carried out on the blood is so great that a misting pattern is formed. This makes each stain less than 1 millimeter in diameter. This makes the blood look as if it's been sprayed, and this is classified as a high velocity impact spatter. With forward spatter, small drops of blood travel along with the bullet through the opening where the bullet leaves the body. The pattern of forward spatter usually contains more blood and covers a larger surface compared to the pattern of back spatter. Normally, the forward spatter takes the form of the fine mist, and the back spatter has the larger, fewer drops.
Wow, I didn't even know there was such a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Wow.
Completely different, forces.
It's really smart, yeah.
So that's sort of what I've got on gun wounds, but I thought, just for fun,
I'd
include some other types of blood patterns and explain what they are.
I love it. It is just like watching an artist, but you can see exactly what stroke caused what, How did they flick their hands? How did this?
You can literally recreate what's happened from it. So we've got cast-off stain. This is patterns of projected blood from an object, such as a knife, where it's contained enough blood that it's been swayed in the air, and this creates a line of spray. Typically, you'll only see 1 or 2 lines. It doesn't mean that it's only been swung once or twice. It just means that the blood there's not enough.
So it's the same over the top of each other sometimes.
There's arterial spurting. So this is...
You know how I feel about veins, Amy.
This is resulting from blood exiting the body under pressure from a breached artery. It will often be seen in a wave pattern following with the beating of the heart.
No.
So every time it beats, it's like, woo, wave. Down, woo, wave, down.
I feel so weird right now. I hate veins.
You're welcome.
This is why I can't do forensics.
So we have transfer patterns, and this is a pattern that forms when a wet, bloody surface comes in contact with a second surface, such as if, you've got a bloody footprint and it steps onto another surface, it will leave a print. Yeah. So then we've got wipe and swipe stains. They're two different things.
Oh.
So a swipe pattern is the transfer of blood from a moving source onto an unstained surface. And a wipe pattern is a blood stain pattern created when an object moves through an existing stain.
Oh, okay.
So one is the stain's the one that's moving, and the other one is that something else is moving through the stain.
Yes.
So this is a few of the blood patterns that I thought you'd find quite interesting.
Yeah, I've learnt a lot in that. That was really good. Thank you.
So yeah, that's okay. I hope you all enjoyed that.
Interesting. I only had a mild breakdown. I'm proud.
And that's all we need.
All we need, Amy.
So, now my question for you, Freya.
Ooh.
What impact does addiction have on the brain?
Okay, so this is obviously different for every individual person, but I'm just going to generalise here about what happens to our brains when we suffer from an addiction. I feel like I'm teaching a high school class, you know. This is why we don't do drugs, kids.
It does feel like that, doesn't it?
Addiction is not a choice, as some might assume. It's a chronic brain disease where individuals compulsively seek out their addictive substance despite the harmful consequences. So when we say chronic, we mean long-lasting and that it can't be cured, but it can be managed with treatment. And when we say disease, we mean a condition that changes the way an organ functions. And that's exactly what addiction does, because it changes the brain on a physiological level, which again just highlights that this assumption that people who suffer from addiction lack willpower is really wrong. How it changes our brain physiologically is down to the chemicals, like always. You know that, Amy. You know the chemicals. Those classic chemicals. You see, our brain is wired to reward us with the release of the neurotransmitter dopamine when we do something pleasurable. This is usually from fulfilling our innate needs like eating, sex, exercise. Exercise is an innate need. But apparently...
okay.
I don't believe it, but also just from other activities that are linked to our health and survival. So we get this release of dopamine and it teaches us to repeat what we are doing to receive that release again.
Like, that's good, you'll do that again.
Yeah, it's like our brain's clever way of being like, that's going to keep you alive and well, please do it more.
Keep on with that.
The problem is, drug and alcohol and other like addictive substances, they can impact on the same part of the brain that triggers this release of dopamine. And instead, it releases extreme amounts of dopamine. This is not a good thing for us, even though it sounds like it is. Because when it's repeated over and over, it starts to rewire our brain and it teaches us to keep doing the things that are harmful for this increased amount of dopamine. And it's now at an unnatural high level.
Yeah.
The brain then goes into panic mode when it realises what is happening. So it tries to reduce how much dopamine it can produce to try and normalise the levels, like overcompensates.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, this is what results in what we call like the come down from a high, making us feel really bad. And then what do we do when we feel really bad? Oh, we want to get more of that dopamine.
Like, come back to me, dopamine.
Come back. The problem is, you now need even more substance than you had before to trigger those high levels again. And that is how this cycle of addiction takes effect. Over time, though, the constant use of your addictive substance will numb your ability to feel that pleasure. Not just from the substance used, but also from those important natural highs like activities and relationships that you previously would have enjoyed. At this point, the substance and everything else that you do results in much smaller releases of dopamine because of how the brain has been altered. And so the individual starts to use more and more of the substance, not to get high anymore, but just to feel normal.
That's so sad.
It is. From a psychological standpoint, studies have found that those who suffer from drug addiction have physical changes in the area of the brain that is involved with your judgment, decision-making, learning, memory, and your ability to control your behaviour. This is what scientists believe contributes towards why addiction sufferers demonstrate compulsive and destructive behaviour. Although addiction is a lifelong disease, the good news is that when it comes to treating it, you can, and recovery is also possible. To do so, though, you need to address both the neurological and psychological aspects of this illness, which can be done through a mixture of methods, including therapy, medication, and lifestyle changes. If you feel like you are suffering from an addiction, then I just want to take this opportunity to urge you to go and seek help. There is no shame here, and this is nothing to do with your strength of mind. What you're experiencing is a disease, just like any other physical disease, and you can and should get better. To find out more, visit mind.org.uk for a list of resources and support that are specialised to each specific addiction.
Yes, guys, absolutely. Look to get help. There's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely.
So yes, that was a good episode.
Thank you. I thought it touched on some outlandish ideas. Parents killing their own children.
Yeah, that is a wild one, to be fair.
The word for this is filicide.
Ooh.
Filicide. I don't know, I'm singing it.
Doesn't make it any more jolly.
Filicide when a parent kills their child.
You can book us to do some songs for you.
At your children's parties.
You name it, we do it.
We will be there. If you want that, we will deliver. You know. But yeah, that's it, guys. That's what we have for you.
Nice note.
Oh yeah, no, that's not what we have for you. We have more. God,
so before she forgets again.
Don't leave us yet. We have more. We have some nice notes for the week because we're trying to not be so doomy
and gloomy.
So, Amy, what is your nice note of the week?
My nice note this week is I'm enjoying the fact that winter is coming.
Ooh.
I love winter. It's my favourite season.
You do. She is a winter addict.
I mean, there's nothing better than winter. You get Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
It's cold. Sometimes it's snow. I mean, very rarely, but sometimes.
Global warming.
It's windy, it's cold, it's raining, all the greatest things. And
You just list all the really bad weather, like all the greatest.
all the greatest things. There's nothing better. I love just going on a walk when it's raining. That's
The
nice.
smell of the
Oh.
pavement and it's freshly rained.
Beautiful. Love the smell of rain.
Heaven. It is. I want that in a candle format
That would be good.
to then like breathe in indoors, so I don't have to go out.
But yeah, so I'm looking forward to the winter
Winter.
season.
Yeah, I get that. I think winter is definitely up there. I mean, our birthday is summer, so that doesn't give us a bit of excitement for the summer months, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
I do think if I had to choose a preference, autumn's mine. I'm a bit of a basic white girl.
Yeah.
Sorry.
She's got a pumpkin spice latte.
Do you know what? It ain't half bad. But I will always be a hazelnut fan.
Mm-mm.
Hazelnut syrup over pumpkin spice. I'm not that white girl, guys. But yeah.
I'm very much looking forward to it.
What is your Christmas decoration colour combo? Just the two colours you'd pick for your Christmas decoration.
Probably green and red, like a classic. We
Classic.
don't really have a colour theme at my house. It's just
Christmas.
trashy Christmas is what I like to
Trashy
call
Christmas
it.
sounds amazing.
It's like probably decorations that have been around since the 80s.
That
Still
sounds
around.
amazing.
It's amazing. It's great.
It's retro Christmas. You come in.
It really
and
is. Just Christmas everywhere.
Christmas
you can't
rainbow.
escape. Exactly.
That is a style choice.
That is my style choice.
That is a good colour combo. I think we went red and gold when we bought our tree. We went charity shopping because we're very eco-friendly. We were
She's
like,
so good.
so trying. We got such a good deal. So this is more evidence that you guys need to charity shop because
I
when
do
we
love a charity shop.
when we found our Christmas tree, it was I think £90 from M&S, but it was like
Ooh.
10 or 15 from the charity shop, brand new.
That's pretty good.
And they just got it in that day, so it was like fate.
Oh,
We
it was
walked
meant to
in,
be.
The Christmas angels guided us to that tree. And we were like, oh man, this is awesome. And then when we were there, they have these massive boxes of tinsels and baubles. Again, so much of it is brand new because people
Yeah.
are wasteful at Christmas.
People just buy a shit ton and then don't use half of it, and then they're like, "Oh, what do I do with this now?"
just drop it off at the charity shop.
Yeah,
And
that's
it was
fine
like-
for us to collect.
Exactly. It was like 5p a bauble or something. So
Ooh,
we just sat
that
there
is
picking out
good.
all the baubles that we thought looked really cute. And
Yeah.
they were really nice. And I just think it's sad that people every year they're just like, I'm going to change my Christmas display and just bin it off.
Oh, we've had the same one for about my whole life. pretty
you are
much.
the eco-friendly,
You
prototype.
should see our
there.
drunken fairy.
Drunken
I'll have to
fairy.
post a photo when it gets closer to
Ooh,
Christmas.
yeah, you will. I don't know if I've seen
She
this.
sits on top of the tree
Love it.
and
She's
she looks
wonky.
a mess. She's been through some hard times. She's been into the wine a lot of the brandy, the port. She's been in it.
She's got the Christmas spirit though.
She really has.
Oh, that's really nice though. I think that's good. I think I've got a fairy from childhood that I use on my mini Christmas tree that I had when I was a kid.
Well, if it's still around to last, why not?
Exactly. If it ain't broke,
Don't fix
don't
it.
bin it. That is a good note. Nice note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what's your nice note?
So my nice note for the week is the Reddit community. I feel
Cute.
like we've bonded, you know. I've been posting some questions to the true crime thread. You've been posting some questions as well to help us with this season.
Yeah, get some ideas. Because people have some really good stories that you might not have known about or
Yeah.
even looked up.
It restores your faith in humanity a bit when you go on there and people just want to have a chat about things that you have common interests and people are nice and not mean.
Well, this might be just our
This is
little
just our
section.
experience.
I'm sure it's not all the same for everyone.
That's true. Reddit is probably actually one of the meanest places, but
For us.
recently we've had a very nice Reddit experience, and I just think it's nice because at the moment it's always so polarized online, and I thought it was just a nice thing to find a place where people were not being mean to me.
She just needs people to be nice.
Please,
She's fragile.
I'm fragile. So yeah, that's my nice note. So thank you, Reddit people, if you ever listen.
And they're like, oh, no.
Fuck no.
Go away.
You have made my week, and I look forward to talking to you again until you're mean, and then I probably won't.
And then we're out of here. We're done.
Because I'm sensitive. All right, that's it then
Yeah.
for this week. As always, find us on social media, rate us on Apple Podcast. Is there anything else they need to do?
Keep listening every week.
That's the other thing.
But until then,
Have a
have a
killer
killer
week. Goodbye.
bye. You can find a full list of our resources used to create this episode at our website, witworld.co.uk/podcast.
That's witworld.co.uk.